Blackfoot Indians were feared warriors and had very strong cultural pride. The Blackfoot Confederacy consists of three smaller tribes, the Piegan, the Siksika, or Blackfoot proper, and the Guyana, or Blood. Originally, the Blackfoot lived near the northern Great Lakes, but were forced westward by a rival tribe, the Cree Indians. The Blackfoot tribe was the first to move westward, and they began living nomadically in the northern plains and in Canada. Their land reached from the North Saskatchewan River in Canada to the Missouri River in Montana and along the eastern Rocky Mountains. Today, the North Piegan, North Blackfoot, and Blood have the right to reservations in Alberta, Canada, and South Piegan has land in Montana. Though the Blackfoot Confederacy was not bound politically, they were united by defending their land and in warfare. Together they were 30,000 strong. Every band was determined by residence, not kinship. Anyone was allowed to leave and join other bands freely, and each was led by a chief that gained leadership by wealth, war success, and ceremonial experience. Chiefs dressed elaborately and wore their hair with 3 braids and a bun at the top. They wore headdresses with feathers that stood straight up and painted their faces for special occasions. The Blackfoot tribe was known for their violent tendencies. They were taught to be brave warriors. The common saying young boys were told was, "It was better to die young as a brave warrior than to get old." The Blackfoot were extremely hostile towards neighboring tribes. The tribe hunted buffalo as their main food and caught smaller animals in snares. The only crop they grew was tobacco, which was grown for ceremonial purposes. The Blackfoot had a monopoly of the fur trade and first traded for horses and guns. The shelter in winter was 10 to 20 lodges, which each held 100 to 200 people. Once all traces of winter had fled, the Blackfoot followed the buffalo into the grasslands where they lived in big tribal camps. The most important ceremony took place in the middle of summer and was called the Sundance. After a large hunt, buffalo was provided for food and offerings. This ceremony allowed social purposes, war societies based off of bravery, and ceremonial rituals to occur. This was the only time that the entire Blackfoot Confederacy was together. In the Blackfoot's version of the Sundance, the women participated as well as the men. After the Sundance, the Blackfoot separated again to follow the buffalo. Hostility towards the white settlers began when 2 Indians were killed by explorers on the Lewis and Clark expedition in 1804. In 1855, many tribes, including the Blackfeet, participated in the first American treaty with Native Americans called the Lame Bulls Treaty. They gave away a section of their land in exchange for promises and pledges by the government. Not many were fulfilled, and conflicts arose when white settlers moved in and began demanding that the Blackfoot's land was reduced. This caused the tribe to revolt in a series of raids and attacks, nicknamed the Blackfoot War. The Blackfoot resisted the unfair change in this way. Another example of this tribe's resistance to change was shown through their leader Crowfoot, who met with the Canadian government in 1879. Officials wanted the tribe to give their land to white settlers in exchange for money. When one man showed Crowfoot a bundle of money, Crowfoot laid clay on the fire and asked the man to do the same with the money. When the man refused, Crowfoot said, "Your money is not as good as our land. The wind will blow it away. The fire will burn it. Water will rot it, but nothing will destroy our land." Lastly, to show their resistance, the Blackfoot slowed America's western settlement. They raided and killed white settlers who sought to take their land. In the 1600s, the Blackfoot moved west and became nomadic. In the 1700s, they lived in the valley of the northern Saskatchewan River, and when the white settlers hunted the buffalo almost to extinction in the late 1800s, they could no longer keep their traditions and culture alive. One important person was a wise leader named Crowfoot. Although he had been a fierce warrior, by the time he was 30, Crowfoot was chief of the Blood. He realized that the number of whites and their weapons outnumbered the Native Americans. He began to promote peace and coexistence with the white settlers, but tried very hard to keep as much of their land as possible without starting battles. He was asked to mediate between whites and Indians and surpass the other Blackfoot chiefs as the most influential. Crowfoot caused the tribe to consider peaceful ways of settling disagreements than their violent tendencies. One historical event that took place was one of the largest Indian massacres that has ever been done by Americans. The Marias Massacre took place on January 23, 1870. Originally, The American troops were looking for a violent tribe of the Blackfoot, but instead came upon the friendly and amicable Piegans led by Chief Heavy Runner. The camp was unprotected because most of the men were out hunting. When the chief waved a safe conduct paper, a scout, Joe Kip, announced that they had found the wrong tribe. However, he was threatened into silence. Joe Cabell, another scout, shot and killed Chief Heavy Runner. The troops ambushed the tribe. When it was over, 137 were dead and 140 were captured. Most of those dead were women, children, and the elderly. Those who were captured were later released without proper food, clothing, or horses. A large amount of them froze or starved to death as they walked to Fort Benton, Montana, which was 90 miles away. This event caused the Blackfoot to be even more suspicious and even more hostile towards white men. The Blackfoot had about 30,000 people in their tribe, but after the white settlers invaded their land, their number dropped to 5,000 due to diseases, starvation, and cruelty of white men. However, today they are ranchers and thrive at over 38,000 members. The Piegan Blackfoot reside in the Blackfoot Nation near Browning in northwestern Montana. 11,000 Blackfoot live in Alberta, Canada.